There's so much to be said around DE&I. A lot of it, to me, was just a facade. My stance is that if DE&I is separate from everything else in the business, then it was never going to work.
Diversity, generally. I want to talk a little bit about that because it's another area in the world of work where we've seen this huge shift pendulum-wise. And I want to get a sense from you around the value of DEI training and what you think about what the future of DEI training is.
There's so much to be said around DE&I and the current state of what's going on. Obviously, in 2020, the pendulum swung to everyone's going to do diversity. We're going to be inclusive. Everyone needs to belong. We're going to set up all these programs. And now the pendulum is swinging back to, maybe we don't want to do that, or maybe we don't want to call it out that we're doing those things. And so a lot of it, to me, was just a facade. Like you were doing this and it wasn't really baked in to everything that you wanted to do. So my stance is that if D&I is separate from everything else in the business, then it was never going to work. If it was not embedded into everything that you're doing, and I mean everything, then it was never going to work. And if money was not involved in holding people accountable, it was never going to work. And so the companies that have done that, it shows. It is showing in their product. It's showing in the way that they're showing up. It's showing in the ways that they have not dismantled it. And also, if you were able to easily dismantle it, it was also fake, because how can you dismantle something that was supposed to be part of everything you were doing?
I think what you're calling out is we are delivering DEI training on this day at this time. Everybody get your check mark, versus anti-oppressive practices being built in to your hiring, to your performance management, to your leadership development, to the way you do one-on-ones, to every bit involved in the employee experience. Have you seen companies? You mentioned that there's some doing well. Anyone that you want to call out doing it well?
I wouldn't call anyone out by name, but I will say that I have absolutely seen some leaders specifically that have made it a point to make it a part of how they deliver information on their team, how they're building their team, that I absolutely respect. I think organizations sometimes, unfortunately, there's a bad apple, and that bad apple kind of shines a light on some things for one team, maybe that the other team isn't doing. And I actually find this a lot in HR. In most companies I've joined, the HR team is the most diverse, most inclusive team versus some other departments. And I always find that fascinating. Like, okay, well, this team is the team that's like hiring people and doing all of these things, and they're representing the values that you want, but no other department is doing this. And that's a call out that I have not figured out yet, but it's happening.
It's making me think of one thing you referenced earlier around, we talked about culture a lot and how culture isn't like the fluffy sparkles, but it is what's happening when no one's watching, who gets hired and fired and why. And this concept of DEI being like a thing you can just easily remove because it's not integrated anything. Perhaps that's the gap. It's like an exposure of, if we're not making decisions relative to diversity, equity, and inclusion that result in people joining or leaving the organization, that's going to tell you a lot about a culture.
Absolutely. And one of the things I tell my mentees about culture is I say, tell me who are the exceptions to the rules, and I can tell you what the culture is. So you make all these great rules. Who are the people that those rules don't apply to them? These are the exceptions, and then I can tell you what the culture is.
That's a pretty depressing thought. It's true, though. Like, I've seen it. I agree with you. It's true.